Hi, everyone. I am so excited for today. I am here with my friend Amar. We have been friends, gosh, it must be for about a decade now. We connected from having similar work and playing in similar energies, and it's always a delight to connect with him. And I've been missing his big hearty laugh. If you don't know it, it's contagious and wonderful. So welcome, Amar. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's so good to see you, Shelley. And I have to fight the urge to stare at your face on the screen because I know that's not the camera. So I always want to make eye contact. So I'm looking at your face, but it's really lovely to see you too. And I can't believe it's
Well,
been almost
heart to
10
heart,
years.
we just know those heart shards go everywhere, right?
Exactly. And I can't believe it's been almost 10 years that we've known each other.
I know. Do you believe it's 20 years is my anniversary on March 31st of doing this work?
That's
Like
amazing.
how?
That's
Oh my
amazing.
goodness. Time
Yeah,
flies when you're having a good time.
it sure does.
For people who don't know you, in the off case that somebody doesn't know you or what you do, can you please explain what it is that you do?
Yeah, the big title is Energy Intuitive Spiritual Guide and Author.
Okay. That covers a lot of ground.
It sure does. I like to be busy. I like to have a lot of irons in the fire.
I love that. I think that's so important. I think growing up, a lot of us were raised like, what are you going to be when you grow up? Like there was only one thing.
Yeah,
And I love that as we're going along in our journey, we realize that we can have all kinds of pots and it's okay. And more than that, it allows the universe to support you with all of these different streams according to what the energies are doing. So.
yeah.
So I know I asked you this question not long ago by email, and I asked you, do you consider yourself a conscious channel? And you said yes. Have you always been a conscious channel?
Yes and no. Yes, I've always had that connection and it's always been present. I just never knew what it was. I thought it was just how humans were. And I just assumed everybody had that same connection. And I think everyone does. I just don't know that everyone has it turned on or are even aware of it. And then when I went through the big awakening period in 2012 after a series of crazy experiences, um, stepping into this role and finally saying yes to spirit and to myself, essentially, there was a brief period where I was doing what we would traditionally think of as channeling, where I would close my eyes and my voice would change and the posture would change, and there would be the sense of like a new energy or personality in the space. And that lasted for about 6 months. And then it quickly accelerated just into when I'm in a space with someone and I am setting the intention to be the vessel, the words just come out.
Hmm. So it just naturally evolved for you that quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what I know now is that I would not have believed or trusted that what I just was born doing was somehow unique, not special, but unique to
Mhm.
a lot of the humans that are currently walking around on the planet. So I think I needed that period of channeling for me to believe that what I was doing was legitimate. I have a sense that had I just gone from like awakening to sitting in front of a client and just speaking, I wouldn't have felt like what I was, because I was still in the mindset of like, oh, but I need like a turban and a crystal ball, and there has to be some sort of magical thing. And I was really caught up in the frippery and like the stage dressing of it all. And that's really fun. I don't mind that still, but I guess my point is that I kind of needed the official training or the official channeling chapter to really see that, oh, I'm already doing this.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
I still have trouble with that, even though stuff comes through.
Yeah.
Um, I've just worked with Gabriel for so long from that connected space that I use. And I think, well, people really want to hear him more than me. And what if I'm doing it consciously and it's too much of me getting in? So I still haven't had the courage to step fully into that. One
Yeah,
day.
no, I get it. I totally understand it. And I think we each have our own, we each have our own way of doing it. And I think we need what we need to set us up to feel like we're in that space where we can really be. So I totally get that. I totally get that.
Well, I don't like to rush into anything. It's only been 20
No.
years. So how did you come to this awakening? I know that you've talked about this 2012
Yeah.
kaboom.
Yeah.
Sonic kaboom, like the little
Yeah.
Martian. Um, but tell me about that. I've never really heard you speak about that.
Well, I've always had this connection. I've always been able to see beneath the physical or behind the physical or beyond the physical or through the physical, depending on the circumstances. And again, I just thought that this is how people were. I just thought that every human did it this way. And when I was a child, I was seldom paying attention to the physicality of a situation. I was feeling what was behind the physicalness or the physical illusion. I was sensing, I could tell when people weren't telling the truth. I could tell when people were saying one thing and meaning another or wanting to say something else. And I could almost always tell, like, what was the root of the problem? Like, what were they trying to hide? I quickly found out that a lot of adults don't really like it when a little kid tells their secrets to them to their face.
Ah, yeah.
So I learned really, really quickly that if you're going to survive and thrive in this reality, you need to keep it quiet.
Mm,
So I just spent a lot of time as I moved into puberty and became a teenager. I just spent a whole lot of time and energy trying to not feel and sense and know. And then as I became an adult, I learned like, oh, well, sex and drugs and drinking also makes the voices quieter. So let's just do a lot of that.
mm,
So I just spent basically the bulk of my early adult years trying to run from who I was. And then starting in like the mid 90s, there was a series of experiences that happened where spirit started knocking on the door and the experiences got a little bit crazier and a little bit more intense and a little bit harder to explain or justify away. And finally, after a series of events, so I'll stop briefly and tell a little bit. So in 2005, I was living in New York. I'd been there for about 7 years. I was at the end of my rope in every way. I was broke. I was in debt. I didn't have an apartment. I had to sleep on my mattress in friend's living room. Like I was, at the end of my rope. Like seriously, if a ship had come down and said, "Hey, do you want to come with us?" I would have said yes.
mhm,
I just unequivocally said yes and just left. So one morning in 2005, I was about to lose my mind and I was just at the end of my rope. And one morning I just said, the house was empty, everyone had gone to work. And I just said, I don't know what to do. I need help. Immediately, I felt this shift in the room, like something happened. And I heard this voice say, well, you do realize that it doesn't have to be this hard. You can leave and go back to Seattle if you want to. And it was a voice. It wasn't a thought. No one was home. No one was outside. The TV wasn't on. So I was like, oh, okay. So long story short, 2 weeks later, I was back in Seattle, had a job, had an apartment. Like everything just felt, why do I keep hitting myself in the face with my sweatshirt? Everything fell into place. Fast forward to me not being quite ready and running and deciding that no, I need another loop on the merry-go-round of suffering and self-denial. So I did that. And then fast forward to 2012, I was living in Los Angeles in the exact same state, miserable, broke, in debt, hated my job, hated my life, hated everything, like just wanted out. And so I decided to paint my apartment. And so then I was painting the bathroom and was just about ready to finish the final stroke on the bathroom wall. And as soon as I touched the roller to the wall, I heard the same voice. You do realize as soon as you finish painting this wall, it's going to be time to leave. And that was it. It was the exact same voice. It was the exact same, like I just broke. Like that finally broke me open, completely lost it for a good half hour of just uncontrollable sobbing. And then I said, okay, I don't know who you are or what you want, but if you get me back to Seattle, get me a job in an apartment, I will do whatever you want. I won't run. I won't hide. I won't move. I won't leave. I will stay. 3 weeks later, back in Seattle with a job in an apartment. No idea how it happened. I was only 2 months into a 12-month lease. I had about 20 cents in the bank. Like it just happened. So that was it. That was it. And after those experiences, and it was that bookend of those two separate experiences that were the same thing and the same exact experience and circumstances, I couldn't pretend anymore. So I said, all right, fine. And then it was just like this rapid acceleration back to that connection.
mhm.
It happened.
So I've been observing you in your world tour
And
that you've
it
been
has been
doing
quite a world tour.
as long as I know you.
Yeah.
Um, Is it the same voice all the time that tells you it's time to move on?
No, and in fact, the voice was only necessary because I was so stubborn. I
Okay.
was born with this unbreakable will. And I also have a history, decades of getting exactly what I want when I want it and how I want it because of that will.
Oh.
And I just went through life assuming that I'll just get whatever I want whenever I want it. And it was almost always that way, even when I didn't really try, like it just would happen. And then at post the whole awakening experience, what I realized is like that presence and that voice, that was just me. That was just me at that purest level, speaking to myself in a way that I knew would finally get my attention and finally get me to get my head out of my butt. Um, so is it the same voice? Technically, yeah, because it's just me, but it's not in the way that it was in those two instances. Seldom do I hear it in that way. It's almost always an inner thing that just sort of emerges, but this was absolutely like there was a voice in the room.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious though about the world tour still. I want to stay on this topic for a
Yeah.
second. How many times have you moved since I've known you in 10 years, do you think?
Oh, well, I counted it up the other day and it's almost 40 in my life. So since 2012, 6, 7 or 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you think that you're doing, like, do you think that's part of your service? Are you working with grids or is it a symbiotic relationship where you show up in a place and the place is supporting you and you're supporting the place? Or,
Yeah.
do you have a sense of what's going on with that?
Sometimes, I wish I could say that, oh, I'm just a frequency holder and I'm just a beacon of light and I'm like a roving lighthouse and I just go where the love and light are needed. Okay, maybe that's part of it, maybe like this much of it. I am aware that I'm a frequency holder and I'm very aware that sometimes my job is just to be there in the space like like a Bluetooth speaker, just giving off energy and frequencies to help whatever needs to be helped in that way. Seldom do I know what's going on. I'm never given the instruction. It always just comes as a result of like, oh, I want to move here. What would it be like to live here? So that's part of it. I think part of it also, I know, is it was really how I learned. Like I didn't go to school for anything. I'm not certified in anything, so it really, all of that moving and that peripatetic life was really just how I acquired skills and knowledge. And then I think also part of it was just to, again, to kind of soften that will, to soften that stubbornness, because I have been dead set on I want a home, I want a husband, I want the car and the dog and the house and the land and all that. I've wanted that for at least 20 years. Despite my best efforts, it just is not time. So I just gave in. I
Mm.
just gave in and was like, okay, when it's time, it's time. And until it's time, I'll just be the wanderer that I am. So I think it serves a lot of purposes.
I want a t-shirt with all the cities. The Amar World Tour.
Yeah.
So when you channel, like if you're channeling in front of a group or not really channeling, but speaking, do you ever get nervous?
Um, Sometimes, yes, I do. And I think these days I am aware of the nerves or the anxiousness when I'm really just putting myself in spirit's hands. It reminds me of the beginning back in 2012 when I first started. Well, I think it was 2013 when I finally started doing readings and seeing clients. I had no idea what I was doing. And for me, as you were talking about your relationship with Gabriel, and for you, it's that sense of safety to feel that, like, okay, no, I'm channeling. For me, it was oracle cards. Like I was so panicked that I wouldn't know what to say or what to do. I was like, well, I have to use cards because then at least I'll have something to say. Oh, look at this card. There's an angel on it, and she's sad or whatever. So I just used oracle cards in the beginning because it was how I could connect, and it was how I could find a sense of safety. And over time, I realized that as long as I showed up, spirit would put the words in my mouth. And so that was always my prayer, was like, I'm here, I'm empty, just fill me with what this person in front of me or people in front of me need. And then somewhere around 2016 or 2017, I think I thought I had it figured out and I got really clever. And I just started kind of creating this formula And I don't think there's anything wrong with the formulaic approach to a plan. We all need a workflow and sort of business plans. But what I didn't realize was I had kind of assumed that, oh, well, that was like my training wheels period, and I don't really need those training wheels anymore. So I can just, again, it was the ego, like, oh, this is me. I get to take control. It's back then it was Andrew. It's the Andrew show. So I kind of got complacent and I got a little bit, not lazy, but I just wasn't as deliberate. I wasn't as dedicated and devoted as I had been. And now recently I found myself coming back to that place of realizing like, oh man, if it really is a co-creative relationship, which is how I see it, I see spirit as my colleague and my partner in life and in practice, then I need to create a space for her to have a voice where I don't come in with anything pre-planned or prescripted. I might have a few little ideas, I might have a few nuggets, but these days I just show up and I actually see nerves and anxiety as a sign and an indicator that I'm moving in the right direction. Because if I'm comfortable and confident and like, oh, whatever, no big deal, then I feel like, well, I'm either not present, I already have a preconceived idea of what's going to happen, or I'm not allowing the fullness of the experience to come in. So I've kind of gone back to flying by the seat of my pants.
Love that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that fear is real. Like, I know that lots of times, like if I'm channeling in front of a group, there's that little moment. Well, I always want to do a great job for everybody, but there's also that little moment where, like, what if nothing happens? Right? And I'm sure they're never going to do that to me, but you
I
just
have
have
that.
that little flicker, right?
Yes, almost not every single time, but especially when it's a new client that I've never worked with before, and especially when I am moving into new subject matter or a new focus that I am not familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's that, oh God, I don't have a script. What do I say? What if the words aren't there? What if nothing happens? What if I get it wrong? What if they're not connected? What if they're looking at me and going, this dude doesn't know what the hell he's talking about? I still get that. I just had it the other day with a client, the first time I'd ever worked with this gentleman, and I was so nervous. And of
Yeah.
course, at the end, he was like, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Oh my God. And the whole time I'm like, is he getting anything out of this? Like, I don't, because like you, I want to do good. I want to do well. I want to honor my role and I want to be worthy of the connection, and all of that. So yeah, I do get
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah. So, what do you tell non-spiritual people when they ask what you do for a living?
I tell them I'm a healer.
Oh, okay. That's nice
I
and
used to
simple.
I used to say I did energy work, and then people would say, "You mean like solar?" And I'd be like, "Well, sort of. I do channel solar deities, but no, not exactly. Oh, like wind? No, never mind. You're just not going to understand. It's fine." So I just tell them I'm a healer. Or now I can
Okay.
say also author. Now that I'm a published author, I can also say author.
Yeah, author's
Yeah,
a good one.
yeah.
So if you were doing what you do now, like if all of a sudden it's like, no, that contract's done, what would you do?
I would open a bakery, or I would open a flower shop.
Okay, awesome. I would have bet makeup artist. I have money on makeup artist.
No, I did makeup artist for like almost 20 years. And when I finally gave away all of my stuff to this young budding makeup artist, I gave her probably close to $10,000 worth of stuff. My whole kit, I just gave it to her. Didn't
Wow.
charge her a penny. And she was like tears just streaming. And I was like, I am so happy to give this to you because I know you're going to love it and honor it. But baking, I bake all the time. I have some bagels actually. I just made the dough tonight. I'll be doing bagels tomorrow morning. And garden flower farming. I took a flower farming course a couple of years ago because the vision I have is of like a self-contained sort of ecosystem. So growing my own food and baking and cooking and all that has always been something I love. But if I wasn't, talking to the spirits, I'd just do that. But I
Wow.
already do. So I don't know. I guess I just do it more.
Yeah. But that's kind of like where you are now. Had you not had a spiritual awakening, what do you think you would have ended up doing?
Well, if I had said no not to be doom and gloom, but if I had said no back in 2012, I'd be dead. I know
Okay.
that.
Wow.
But I don't know what I would do. Like, okay, let's just assume that I was happy. Like, let's go back to 2012 and assume I was happy and that like life was good and I wasn't miserable and searching for the meaning of life. Um, I would probably still be in the fashion industry in some way. I was a makeup artist for almost 20 years, like I said. And then back in 2012, I was working as an agent for a modeling agency. And I really, really loved that. Like being able to work with kids who are just entering the industry and being able to be a voice of sanity and guidance for them, because there's a lot of nasty, scary individuals in that industry.
Right.
Um, and so I just loved being able to be a voice of reason for them and being able to kind of help them out and give them back some of the wisdom that I was given. So I'd probably still be doing that in some way.
Still advising people, just in a
Yeah,
different
still
way.
telling people what to do.
So, do you feel energy? Like, do you feel solar flares when they happen or geomagnetic storms? Are you a feeler of energy?
Yes, but it usually shows up as I have a couple of little symptoms that I'll get that clue me into it, and then I'm like, oh, right, energy, and then I'll slow down and like feel it. So one of them is the ear ringing. Like I get really, really pronounced tinnitus when there's solar flares coming in. Also, my legs, I get like the Jimmy legs. Like I'll be sitting there and all of a sudden, like my feet will just start twitching like this, like going crazy. I'm like, okay, that's energy coming in.
Oh, okay. So, if you find it uncomfortable or too much, what do you do to make it more comfortable for yourself?
I move my body. I find that that really helps me to get out and walk or stretch or just move really gently and kind of deliberately. I find that fluid movements really help my body, kind of like nonlinear movement helps my body kind of release some of that energy. Salt baths are like one of my favorite things in the world to do. Um, and then just for me, really, all that I ever have to do now is just acknowledge it. Like once I realize, like, oh man, there's big energy moving through. Oh, I need to balance this. Then it just kind of happens. It's
Yeah,
really just my awareness these days that allows it to balance. But earthing and crystals and all of those standard practices, I still lean into from time to time when I really need them.
that's good. Yeah.
And I just feel
They
good.
become more important all the time, I think.
Yeah.
The trick is remembering to use them, I think.
I can be my own worst client for sure.
So, what frustrates you about being human?
That we have to move through this density.
Mm,
When I was a kid, I knew that we had access to abilities that we couldn't really tap into yet. I'm not kidding. I used to take like empty aluminum cans and I would like pop cans and I would sit them in the center of my bedroom and I would sit and I would stare at them for like hours trying to get them to move. I just knew that I could do that. I just knew. And it wasn't like I was trying to make it happen or pretending, like I was trying to remember. I
mm,
was trying to remember how to do it. So for me, honestly, the frustration is the density. Like yesterday, and I maybe this is magical thinking, but I have this idea that there are layers of my awareness that aren't necessarily bound to the physical experience that are present with me. Like yesterday, the other day, I was baking and things just weren't happening. It just felt like it was so slow and everything was so heavy. And I just said, like, why does it have to be so slow and heavy? Why can't I just do it? And I knew in that moment that was a part of me that is not really familiar with physicality. And that to me is the most frustrating thing, that, like, why can't I just be where I want to be? Why do I have to walk? Why can't I
mhm.
just create what I want to create? Why do I have to physically do it? Like, that to me is so annoying.
I find that fascinating because there's so many people that do have a remembrance of how things work much easier, and they do get really frustrated because
No.
that's kind of the shadow side of knowingness, like having knowledge that you bring in with you, right? It's a
Yep.
wonderful thing, but also it can be frustrating when it's just not working the way you know it can or should.
Yes. And I would say the second most frustrating thing is the fact that that knowing does not mean that I don't have to go through it.
Yes.
It's like there's the expanded self, which is really what Amar is. I mean, the name of my higher self was given to me in 2016, and he told me my name is Amar, and I just knew in that moment, like, oh, that's a claim I'm going to have to make at some point. And there is that sense of like, I know like it can just be so much easier. I know we can do it. Like, it's just this aggravation. But that knowing doesn't preclude me or give me a get out of jail free card. I have to go through these experiences just like everybody else.
Yeah, darn it.
Yeah.
So, what do you consider to be your superpower?
Being able to find the truth of any situation,
Mm,
the capital T truth.
yeah, that is a superpower. What trait do you most admire in others?
What trait do I most admire in others? I would say commitment. I think because I have had a life as a bumblebee where I just go from flower to flower, kind of sampling everything, which I love. I've also always really wondered, like, what would it be to just like live in one place and have one job and have one partner and one, track and be fulfilled by that. So I
Mhm.
do admire that. Like, I was always so jealous when I was a kid of people who knew what they wanted to do
Mm,
because I just never had any clue,
right.
no clue.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I had heard somewhere along the line that the only ones that really know are those that are performers. So performers tend to know very young. That people say, oh, they
Mhm.
were dancing
Yeah.
before they walked, or they sang, or performers would also go into sports where the people just take to the sports. But that seems to be the only one that people know really young, which I thought was really interesting. So yeah, it
Yeah,
would be nice to know, wouldn't it?
it
But
would.
then I guess you'd have other problems that we don't have, maybe. How would you like to be remembered? What would you like to be remembered for?
Someone who was really, really devoted and dedicated to the truth,
Mm,
no matter what.
yeah, that's a great, great idea. I love that. It's so pure because isn't that what it's about, right?
Yeah.
We're all working our way back to our truth, and that I love that. That's so good. It's so simple, right? Isn't it so beautifully simple when you look at it that way?
Yeah, and it's funny because I was just writing this in my newsletter today that what I know to be true is that the truth is always simple. And then it only becomes complicated when you try to distort it or hide it or run from it or change it. And speaking from experience as one who knew at a very young age who I was and what I came here to do, and then spent a whole bunch of decades piling all kinds of crap on top of that in an attempt to eradicate it, and then spent the next 12 years peeling all of that stuff off to get back to it. The truth is the only thing. For me,
Yeah.
that's the only thing.
It makes me wonder what the children of today will be capable of if they can just be the truth of who they are and be supported in that. It'll be fascinating to see what the next generations look like from not having to cover up and then unpeel again.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what have you been feeling about 2024? Or, the new energies that we're
Yeah.
entering?
Um, you know, the answer that I was giving, because I did a whole bunch of like 2024 tarot forecasts. I like for the past 2 months, that was all I was doing. And one of the things that I was saying almost every single time is that 2024 is the year where we have the opportunity to apply everything that we have learned over the past 3 years. So, whatever you know about yourself now, what is true about you now? What do you like? What do you want? What do you desire? What is important? What have you learned? All of that. And this is the year where we can apply it. And those who are moving with what is true for them will have an experience that will seem magical. And those who are not, those who are still insisting that that voice out there in that pulpit or on that stage or on that TV show is true and the truth, and that and have I bothered to examine that for myself? Who cares, right? Then those people who are not living according to their truth. And I'm not talking about the truth by default that we're all just born into. I'm talking about the people who have done the work to open themselves up and discover.
Mhm.
those people are going to have an amazing year. The people who have not are going to find themselves looking out there going, well, how come they are having a good time? How come they are having a good life? How come things are easy for them? Because I created it.
Yeah.
Just as you have created the lack of what you desire. So 2024, there's nowhere to hide. There's no one left to point the finger at. So what I think 2024 is just a big mirror.
Oh, interesting.
And you're not going to be able to escape it. And those of you who are loving your life and loving what you're doing, you are going to have a fantastic year of dancing with that reflection.
Yeah.
And those who have not are going to find themselves running and trying to hide from it at every turn. And it will not happen. They are going to find themselves living in a world made of mirrors.
Mm,
It will
wow.
be everywhere. They won't be able to hide.
That is such a
My heart
great,
goes out to them.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
have
Wow.
deep compassion for them.
Yeah. But we all found our way into this. Well, most of us found our way into it. I know myself from the fetal position on the living room floor and so many others, right? So
Yes.
sometimes it's sometimes it's a faster awakening to go down rather than to go like gradually up, right?
Yeah.
It can be a springboard. So even though that can sound scary, it's actually more efficient.
I agree. And I think it's probably even what the soul is more equipped for. Like what I have learned is that if the soul has a choice between, oh, a nice steady incline and the sheer face, it's choosing the sheer face every single time because that's the shortest distance. So let's go. Come on, get on with it. So it's the human that holds back. It's the human that wants safety and protection and the guardrails. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. Why wouldn't you want that? But given the choice, and where we are, the choice is, are you going to do it with your eyes closed, your eyes open? You don't really have a choice. Like it's happening. This experience of awakening and ascension is happening. And so you just have to accept what is here. I mean, it's it, right? We've all been here. For how many years have we been ringing the bell of like, get your shit together, get right with yourself, find out what truth feels like for you, connect with your true self, be the sovereign that you are.
Yeah.
So I think in many ways, probably those who are going to have the experience of this year, it's exactly what their soul wanted. Because the soul's like, oh, I don't want to do it easy over 10 years. I want to do it hard and fast over 9 months.
Mhm.
Awesome.
God bless them.
Yes.
So, who has had the greatest impact on your life?
I would say, oh my gosh, that's such a good question. There have been so many. Well, I mean, the first person that pops into my head was my grandmother, my granny, my mom's mom, and she died. It's probably about 15 years ago now. But we were like soulmates. She was absolutely one of those beings that we agreed to be touchstones for each other, and we agreed to really remind each other. And she never ever had anything other than complete and total faith in me. Like she absolutely loved everything I did. And she was not a kiss ass. Like there were many times of her saying, no, you can do better. That's silly. Like she pushed me, but she never, ever, ever doubted me. She
Mhm.
always knew. She always knew. And she always told me, you're like me. You're a late bloomer. You're probably not going to figure it out until you're in your 40s. And, as a kid, 40 sounds like, oh my God, that's like 1,000 years from now. Like, what? 40? Um, but she was probably the biggest influence. But I would say all of those, except for a couple of men, every single person that I'm thinking of in my head has been a woman. Like women have been the source of so much guidance and support and insight for me throughout my life. They have always been there as an avatar of the divine feminine herself with exactly what I needed in that moment. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. But if I had to pick one, I would say my granny for sure.
Someone spoke, I think it might have been Cryon, who said that grandchildren are an aspect of the grandparent. And
Hmm.
that's why you see so many having, those really close bonds and that deep understanding. And this sounds like that might very much be the case. It sounds like
Yeah,
that.
it felt like that. I mean, it was one of those relationships where we didn't even have to speak and we knew, I mean, we could communicate that way. We just knew it was, yeah, it was very, very, very close. She was an amazing, amazing person.
Oh, I love that. I love that you had her.
Yeah.
What has been the most pleasant surprise of your journey?
How none of the fears that I had ever came true. And this is what my guides told me in the very beginning. We're here to promise you that 99.9% of the things you're afraid of are never going to happen. And those that do happen are never going to happen in the way that you are afraid that they will. They will always happen in a way that's aligned with what you're prepared for in that moment. Like for me, that chronic fear and anxiety was something that I was steeped in, and it's sort of how I grew up. And so that was a really, really hard frequency for me to finally silence within, it was just like a bell ringing forever. It was just reverberating. So I would say the most pleasant surprise is that things were a whole lot easier than I expected them to be. And all of the fears I had, especially in the beginning of like, oh, these people are going to disown me. They're not going to get it. Yeah, I lost friends for sure. Yeah, there were some awkward, uncomfortable periods, even with my family, who I'm very close with. So yeah, there were some of those fears of like, oh, people are going to judge me. People are going to think I'm weird. Well, they were already judging me and thinking I was weird, to be honest. Like if if something like a spiritual awakening is cause for you to completely deny someone and cut them out of your life, most likely you were never that close to begin with. But I would say in hindsight, how easy it's been.
Mm, that's a great perspective. I love that perspective. So, what is your favorite reference book?
Hmm. I am really, I have it right here. I am really into Freddie Silva. There's been a million of them over the years. And there are like, I love Natalie Sudman. The Application of Impossible Things is a fantastic book. It's teeny tiny. It's like not even 100 pages. But Freddie Silva, The
Oh,
Lost Art of Resurrection, this, and all of his books. He has several books. He's an incredible author. It blew my mind because he talks a lot about the Egyptian mystery school and the lost art of the resurrection and how you aren't resurrected after you die into heaven. And if you aren't resurrected while you're still living in a body, that's when the whole karma loop happens. And he just talks about how churches and organized religions have taken this very real ritual that was practiced by mystery schools and secret societies for centuries, which was essentially to connect with the higher self and bring it into form. And you went into this ritualistic death. You didn't really die, of course, but they would give some sort of narcotic where you would go into this really, really deep, deep sleep for like 3 days and reawaken like resurrected. And that's sort of the core of it. But what he talks about and what he opens up and the facts and the evidence and the proof that he has to support it, it absolutely any remaining shreds of like religious indoctrination or any remaining shreds of like sort of societal programming were just demolished by his books because what it does is it shows you what the truth is. It reconnects you back to the truth of humanity and what it is to be a human. And he does this in many different ways. He's got books on Scotland and like sacred sites and like the different areas around the world. Um, it's mind blowing. Freddie Silva, any of his books, I absolutely refer to time and time again.
well, you got to know I'm jumping on Amazon as soon as we're
Oh my
done.
God, so good. Go to his website. I think it's the Invisible Temple and order directly from him. Or if you just Google Freddie Silva,
Okay.
and then also the Seth work, like Jane Roberts, Seth Speaks, that has been pretty influential.
Me and my bestie were just having this conversation the other day about what if the rapture is just simply moving from 3D to 5D?
I love that.
Because, 3D people can't see you in your 5D-ness. And that way,
Mm-mm.
what if that is the rapture? What if that's what it's been all along?
Yeah, I
Really
love
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we humans love to infuse all of these parables and fables and metaphors with literal sense. We love to take what they say and make it literal. Oh my God, have we lost the concept of storytelling? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I always clarify when my guides say soon, I'm like, okay, Like human soon is in day after tomorrow, or soon is in time is an illusion and I am an endless infinite being. Because those are two very different experiences of soon.
That's soon the four-letter word that no
Yeah,
enlightened human
exactly.
being wants to hear from their guides, right? Oh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. Okay, so we know what you found to be a pleasant surprise. What have you found to be most challenging about the journey itself? And maybe you've
Oh,
already touched on that, but
getting out of my own way. I know it sounds trite. I know it sounds like a cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason. Like, really, I even still to this day, there are moments where I find myself just being sucked into this whirlpool of old programming and old mental stuff. And I just, my God, I made it so hard on myself. My God, I was so difficult to get through to sometimes. And I just had to relearn how to be.
mm,
Frustration doesn't work. Yelling doesn't work. Anger doesn't work. Like it's a moment of letting yourself have the explosion, but to come back to that self that is desperate to be reparented and, loved back into being, the only thing that works is patience and compassion. And I am not a patient person by nature. It took me a lot to just get out of my own way, to shut the fuck up and let myself be healed.
yeah.
Really.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
these be great questions for like a date?
Mhm.
I'm married now, but I wish I had a sheet of questions like this, like to go out on a date.
Well, I'm not married and I'm single, so I'm going to write them all down and I'm taking them on my dates.
Wouldn't you really? Well, like, seriously though, wouldn't these be like give you such a great glimpse of who a person really is?
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that would be awesome. If you knew everything you've gone through in your life so far beforehand, would you still choose it?
Yes.
Okay. What do you wish you knew before you started your spiritual journey or your service?
I wish I knew that a spiritual awakening is not just another transaction to getting what the ego wants.
Oh, that's deep.
In the beginning, it was just like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll surrender. And then you're going to give me this. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll do this, but then you're going to give me that. And Spirit was like, okay, sure, you can think that if you want. Go ahead, keep trying. Like, I just was so out of my depth, thinking that I was so clever and so smart. And to be perfectly honest, and I don't mean this to be a jerk, but I'm usually one of the smartest people in the room. And when I came face to face with Spirit, she just had this smile on her face of like, oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be really, really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your favorite affirmation if you have one?
Only you know what truth feels like.
Oh, yes. Good one. What do you wish people understood about who you are and what you do?
That anybody can do it,
Mhm.
that I'm not special. I'm unique. Yeah, okay, maybe I came in with a few other switches turned on, but that was the whole point, so that I could show you how to do it, so that I could remind you. And what I really wish people would remember about or know about their spiritual journey is they're not learning, they're remembering.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what is your creative process? So I know that you create a lot of stuff. So how does that happen for you?
It usually will come with like a word or a phrase that will just kind of land in my awareness or my consciousness, and I'll just keep repeating it or hearing it or seeing references to it, like on social media or wherever. And then I just start to document. I cannot tell you how many notes on my phone and on my laptop that I have, and just scribbles everywhere. This whole notebook. I mean, this is my process. It's just scribble things down, write words down, and then you just wait. I just know that when the time to create it, I will feel the switch flipping. What I've recently come to really understand is there are so many times when I was creating before it was right. Like I was
Oh,
rushing it. Like I would get an insight or get a thing and be so excited by it, like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I would like run off and put it on Instagram or try to create a course about it before it was ready. So at the end of last year, I really started to see like Spirit saying, take your time. Like You don't have to be in a rush. You don't have to be in a panic. Like, let things simmer, let things just sit and kind of stew. And so that's what I've been doing. But my process is I just get fragments, I get snippets, and I pull them all together. And then I just get the nudge to like sit down, and it just kind of turns into something.
Awesome. What is your biggest pet peeve? What is the irrational thing that just makes you?
Oh my God. You know you're talking to like a super Virgo, right? Like this could be an entire whole podcast in and of itself. Amar's annoyances and pet peeves. What drives me crazy? When people use the self-checkout at the grocery store and they don't know how to use it. Um, People who are always looking for somebody else to blame.
Mm.
The word impactful, I know it's in the dictionary, it's not a word. The word irregardless, it is not a word. Regardless already means without regard to. So irregardless actually is a double negative. So you're meaning regarding. So I'm going to just be a bit of a grammar Nazi. Um, what else bugs me? Other than that, like probably not a lot. The Kardashians annoy me. I wish we could have like just one day on the planet without hearing their name or seeing their visages. Like I don't want anything to do with them, but they, that's fine. They don't bother me too much because they're not here. Other than that, I don't know. You know what really annoys me? When I see someone, and this is petty, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm being really, really petty. And it's not as big of a deal now as it was a couple of years ago. But when I was pouring so much of my blood, sweat, and tears into my YouTube channel, creating content that I felt was like, this could liberate you. Like, this could actually show you how to free yourself. And I'm getting 2,000 views. Meanwhile, someone, what's 1111 video has 12 million views. And I'm like, what is happening? But then I look at Instagram and I say, Kim Kardashian has several million followers. National Geographic has less than a million. I think that's sort of indicative as to what we collectively are searching for, clearly not meaning. But those are just a few of the things that annoy me.
Okay, I'm jumping totally now. Where do you think Atlantis is?
I think Florida-ish, like in that area of the world, I think is where it was. I think
Interesting.
that's why so many woo-woo folks, and I hate that term, but you know what I mean, are drawn to Florida.
Mm.
Hello. Hi, Shelley.
Might be why they call it the Atlantic Ocean, perhaps.
They might.
Okay, a foot cramp. No judgment. Who is your favorite archangel?
Raphael.
Okay, and your favorite ET, if you have one?
I mean, I love the Pleiadians. I have a really, really deep connection with the Andromedans and the Arcturians too. So I'd say those three.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No judgment. What would you do if I gave you $1 million?
Um, I would buy a car and some property and a house.
Hmm. Okay. What is the one thing you want to make sure the new Earth has?
Systems that are built on truth
Hmm.
with a capital T.
The capital T truth. I love that. Like I feel like you're gonna brand that somehow, the capital T. Good. Um, what do you think is the most important theme that is up in the collective right now?
Personal accountability. Like
Mm-hmm.
I see so much finger pointing right now. And finger pointing is always a sure sign of one thing. I don't want to look at my own stuff.
Right.
There are so many wounds of separation that are unhealed right now. And that's why all of this horrible things are happening. It's coming to the surface. And
Yeah.
we have an opportunity to try the one thing we've never tried, which is to stop blaming each other and figure out how to solve it together.
Yes. Those people are going to be very uncomfortable in that house of mirrors of 2024, right?
Have fun.
What's at the very top of your bucket list?
What's at the very top?
Hmm.
Uh, the very top of my bucket list. I want to do like the South American pyramids.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be really fun.
That and to have a physical encounter with my star friends.
Okay. Maybe you could do it from there.
Yeah, hell, why not? Two birds with one stone.
As my daughter says, get two birds stoned at the same time. Um,
I like your daughter.
what would you ask Jesus?
Were you really crucified?
Oh, great question. If you get off balance, how do you find your way back to your center again?
Um, a good cry, a good walk, a salt bath.
Yeah, salt is so amazing.
Mhm.
How do you start your day? Like, do you have like a, like when you first open up your eyes, like, do you have an intention or do you practice gratitude? Like some people just don't even talk to me or think about me until I have my coffee.
Yeah, the first thing I say every morning is thank you. And then usually it's coffee and sitting, and then, meditation or journaling, or if I'm doing a course, then I'll do, a segment of that. If I'm reading something, I might read a little bit. But lots of quiet time, like lots of just kind of sitting and being for a couple of hours in the morning.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I like quiet in the morning and just, yeah, it's good. Um, if you had the opportunity to address a group of first graders, what would your message be to them?
I want to make sure they know how amazing they are.
Yeah, yeah. What is your favorite quote?
Ooh, I'm going to read it from my book, my new book, Notes from the Higher Self, available on Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
There is a quote in here, and it's not me. Where is it? Oh, yeah. The Rilke quote. Um, Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So live the questions. I say that all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. So what theme are you pondering most right now? Like, do you have a ponderance right now?
Liberation.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a new course coming up, the Self Liberators League. And so that has just been like central to everything right now is how do we liberate ourselves?
Right.
Because
Awesome.
that's why we're here.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
didn't come here to wait for someone else to do it.
No. And nobody's coming to do it.
No, and if someone else could do it, it would have happened already.
Exactly.
It's you or nothing, babe.
Yeah. What makes you laugh?
Oh my God, everything. What makes me laugh? Sometimes how stupid I am. Sometimes how I realize like it's been in front of my face the whole time. Like literally me the other day. Where's my phone? Where's my phone? I can't find my phone. What makes me laugh is the absurdity of it all.
Yeah.
Like seriously, like sometimes I just stop and just laugh at how ridiculous this whole thing is. And then, funny movies, like, I've got a little bit of a sophomoric sense of humor. I don't think it's developed much beyond 12 or 13 years old. So I like crass and inappropriate humor, but a lot makes me laugh. I'm just kind of wired for laughter. Like I have this thing that like if I can't find a way to laugh about something, it's really hard for me to even take it seriously because there has to be an inherent balance there. And for me, it always begins with the humor.
Yeah. Where is your favorite place on the planet so far?
Favorite place on the planet so far. I really love Asheville when I was there a couple years ago. Asheville's so beautiful.
Hey,
Yeah.
I can see that being a really good energetic match for you.
Yeah, it was beautiful there. I really would love to live there, but not yet.
Hmm. All right, and our very last question, what message would you like to leave people with today?
Do it now. Whatever
Mhm.
it is, do it now. No one's coming to save you. No president is going to save you. No galactic federation is going to save you. No hidden inner earth conglomerate that's going to ascend out of, it's just no one is going to save you. All of the beings and the energies and the helpers that are here, and we have a lot of them, physical and metaphysical, they are here watching and supporting because they want us to realize that we are here to do it for ourselves. Nobody is coming to save us. It's time for us to save ourselves and then save each other. If you want to save the world, save yourself and then tell everybody how you did it.
Yeah,
If you
perfect.
don't like what you see in the mirror, you don't change it by yelling at the mirror.
Yeah,
You
that's
got to
right.
go in. You got to do it. So do it.
Awesome. All right, so if people want to find you
Yeah.
and experience more of your awesomeness, how do they do that?
Social media, Instagram and YouTube are both Amar Energy. And my website is amar.energy. And that's where they can find like booking calendar. That's where they can find like the events that I'm hosting and all of that. And then they can find me on Amazon, Notes from the Higher Self. That's where my book lives.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's always wonderful to see you. I don't
This
know why
has
we
been
let
so
so much time
wonderful.
go by.
Me neither. Why? I mean, I know we both had life happening and we were, going our own separate ways, and it's fine. I'm just so happy that we've reconnected. It's so lovely to see you.
Me too. So thank you so much. And thank you for listening. And I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.